Professional wrestling, few stories are as heartbreaking and controversial as that of Chris Benoit. Once celebrated as one of the greatest technical wrestlers of all time, Benoit's legacy was forever overshadowed by the horrific events of June 2007. Dark Side of the Ring Season 2, Episode 1, titled Benoit Part 1, begins by exploring the man behind the wrestler, tracing his rise to fame and the personal struggles that would eventually lead to one of wrestling's darkest chapters. This episode doesn't attempt to excuse what happened. Instead, it seeks to understand how someone admired by fans and respected by fellow wrestlers became the center of an unimaginable tragedy. Chris Benoit built his reputation through determination rather than charisma. Unlike many wrestling superstars, he wasn't known for flashy interviews or larger-than-life personalities. Instead, he let his performances inside the ring speak for themselves. Inspired by legendary wrestler Dynamite Kid, Benoit spent years training and competing in promotions across Canada, Japan, Mexico, ECW, WCW, and eventually WWE. Everywhere he went, he earned respect for his intense work ethic and unmatched technical ability. Friends and colleagues describe Benoit as someone who demanded perfection. Wrestling wasn't just his profession, it was his entire identity. That relentless pursuit of excellence made him one of the industry's most respected performers. Away from the spotlight, Benoit married Nancy Benoit, who was already well known in professional wrestling. Together they had a son named Daniel. At first, their life appeared happy. Friends remember Chris as someone who deeply loved his family and especially adored his young son. But beneath the surface, there were warning signs. The demanding wrestling schedule meant Benoit spent months away from home every year. Constant travel, physical pain, and the pressure to perform began taking a toll on both his personal life and mental health. The documentary features emotional interviews with Nancy's sister, Sandra Toffaloni, who shares memories of the family's happier days while also describing growing concerns about the couple's relationship. One of the strongest emotional moments in Part 1 focuses on Benoit's friendship with Eddie Guerrero. The two wrestlers shared similar journeys. Both fought their way through smaller promotions before finally achieving success in WWE. Their bond became one of the closest friendships in professional wrestling. The unforgettable image of Chris Benoit and Eddie Guerrero embracing in the ring after WrestleMania XX remains one of wrestling's most emotional moments. Both men had finally reached the top after years of sacrifice. But happiness would not last. It's the death of Eddie Guerrero. In November 2005, Eddie Guerrero unexpectedly died from heart failure. For Benoit, the loss was devastating. Friends interviewed in the documentary describe Chris as never being the same afterward. He became quieter, more isolated, more emotional. Several people close to him believe Eddie's death deeply affected Benoit's mental state. The documentary doesn't claim this tragedy alone caused what happened later. Instead, it presents it as one important piece of a much larger and more complicated picture. As Benoit continued wrestling, the physical demands became increasingly severe. Professional wrestling is incredibly punishing on the human body. Wrestlers perform hundreds of matches each year while enduring repeated impacts, falls, and head injuries. Although concerns about concussions were beginning to receive attention in professional sports, awareness within wrestling remained limited during that era. Many wrestlers simply worked through pain. Missing shows often meant losing opportunities or letting fellow performers down. Former colleagues interviewed throughout the episode describe a culture where toughness was admired, and injuries were often hidden rather than treated. As time passed, friends noticed changes in Benoit's personality. Some recalled memory problems. Others noticed increasing mood swings and emotional withdrawal. Family members also experienced growing tension at home. The documentary carefully presents these observations through first-hand interviews rather than speculation, allowing viewers to hear directly from those who knew Benoit personally. No one interviewed claims to have predicted the horrific events that would eventually occur. Instead, many reflect on warning signs that only seemed significant in hindsight. One reason this episode stands out is the honesty of its interviews. Chris Jericho speaks openly about losing both a close friend and the image he once had of Benoit. Chavo Guerrero reflects on the pain felt throughout the wrestling community. David Benoit, Chris's older son from a previous relationship, shares deeply personal memories of his father while struggling to reconcile those memories with the crimes that later occurred. Nancy's sister provides perhaps the most emotional perspective, reminding viewers that the tragedy was not only about Chris Benoit, but also about Nancy and Daniel, whose lives were taken. Their voices ensure that the victims remain central to the story. Part 1 concludes by bringing viewers closer to the weekend of June 2007, when the unimaginable would unfold. The episode stops before examining the crimes in detail, instead ending with a growing sense of dread as interviews reveal the mounting concerns surrounding Benoit's physical health, emotional state, and family life. Rather than providing simple answers, the documentary raises difficult questions about mental health, repeated head trauma, the pressures of professional wrestling, and the warning signs that may have gone unnoticed. These questions become the focus of Part 2, where investigators, medical experts, and those closest to the case attempt to understand the tragedy's lasting impact on wrestling and beyond. The story of Chris Benoit remains one of the most painful chapters in sports history, not because it celebrates a wrestling career, but because it serves as a reminder of how devastating violence can forever erase even the greatest achievements. Above all, it underscores the lasting loss suffered by Nancy Benoit and Daniel Benoit, whose lives deserve to be remembered with dignity.